Hey guys, today's video is based on a topic that recently has really just been annoying me lately, but just feel like it's something that I feel like not a lot of people know much about, but for those get more versed into it, they just become so surprised with its current state on this whole subject matter. So I thought I'd do some explaining of what's going on with it, and that is, why is the Silent Hill series so expensive now, ever since for a little over a year at this point? So, if, in case you're unaware, Silent Hill is a very beloved survival horror video game series that back then it was the one primary rival series to a Resident Evil back then. So we know Resident Evil, at least back then for the first few games, it was more of B-movie type horror games that would have a bunch of jump scares, really cheesy dialogue, but overall still had a big name in the whole survival horror series. Then when the Silent Hill series came around from Konami, it created a new type of horror for video games that I think excels better than what Resident Evil has ever done, and that is psychological horror, of course. Instead of pure jump scares, it just really gets the player in a mood where nothing is really shoved in your face, but the way the sound design is, the atmosphere, and stuff that's happening around you, it just makes the player be in a very uncomfortable state. And the way they tell the story as well, it can really make the player feel uncomfortable in a way, and it doesn't directly tell you everything. So as a result, for certain games in the series, to this day, fans are still trying to piece together of what every bit of the story of this series is. So what has happened in recent years, ever since little over more than a year ago at this point, most of the games in this series have just become incredibly expensive compared to what they used to be since for forever, basically. And I do believe there's a few big reasons why that is. Well, really there's only one major reason, though, that has plenty of evidence backing it, but I'll discuss that as the last reason why. So first reason is clearly pandemic has something to do with it, of course. It's something that has affected all retro video game collecting at this point, no matter what system you collect for it. Mainly retro stuff, basically, that all well-known titles have just become incredibly more expensive overall because stores and online resellers, they just want to take advantage of people who still don't want to go to work and have plenty of extra money that they want to spend. And with those still stuck at home, of course, they just want to relive some games that they played a lot back then. And with the age of the Silent Hill series, it has reached that point where with how old it is, people that played it back then when they were young, they probably reached to an age now that they want to re-experience it because they're just feeling nostalgic, of course. That applies to all other retro consoles. I'm sure you guys have felt that with some of your favorite systems as of late. And the next big reason, I'd say, it is a series that has that seems to have gotten a lot more love than it ever has in recent years. Though I find that somewhat hard to believe because even when the series was in its prime way back then, it was still had so much praise from both critics and fans alike that even back, say, mid-late 2000s, it still was a series that was talked about a lot from not just fans, but just people into the survival horror genre overall for the video game industry. And I guess of recent people, there's more of an audience now that they want to experience this series now, and they realize Silent Hill is up there with Resident Evil of having big name recognition, and now that they have more time than ever these days due to pandemic reasons, they can now go back and experience these games finally. And then finally, I say the biggest reason why that this series has just become so expensive. Like it's the biggest reason compared to the previous of why this series is expensive. Is ever since last year, May to 2020, is when the prices for the almost most of the games have just skyrocketed. Now, if you guys remember, back in May 2020, that is when the Silent Hill chapter for Dead by Daylight was revealed. Where, if you're unfamiliar, Dead by Daylight is a asymmetrical multiplayer game where one player plays as a killer that you can play many different characters, even licensed characters, that you you chase 4 other survivors across a whole map as they try to repair generators so they can escape, but while you, as the killer, you have to kill all 4 of the human players, basically. So, and it has become a game that has gotten a big concurrent player base. Like almost every day, you can find between maybe like 30,000 to 40,000 concurrent players, at least according to Steam charts. And back literally over a year ago, at this point, in May, they did announce like the Silent Hill chapter, which introduced a new killer who was Pyramid Head. Which, if you're familiar with the Silent Hill series, Pyramid Head is like arguably the most iconic character, or even monster, from the whole series. And the new survivor they introduced was Heather Mason, who became like a pretty big, like, popular character amongst fans throughout the whole series because of like her role between like certain games that she just became a fan favorite character. And they also introduced a new map as well, which took place in the Midwich Elementary School, which is a certain location that you go to in some of the Silent Hill games. And a way that you can really tell that since that was revealed, this new chapter for Dead by Daylight, you can look on pricecharting.com, look up most of the games in the Silent Hill series. By that time in late May 2020 is when all the prices just started skyrocketing from there. And that's due to the fact that Dead by Daylight is a very popular multiplayer game that when they first saw the trailer or, got the new content with the Silent Hill chapter, that's when they saw, like, a bunch of people were just going absolutely insane at the fact that Dead by Daylight was getting Silent Hill content, because at this point, like for the last decade, Konami has just neglected the series forever, for literally a decade at this point. That then they, for stuff like PT, that they just outright cancel, that most pretty much all of us are still pretty upset about for the potential that game had. The last 3 games that they released back in 2012 were absolute failures. That was the Silent Hill HD collection, Book of Memories, and Downpour, which both those games just outright were terrible. So it really was just a very long time, like more than 10 years, that the Silent Hill fans have just had nothing from the series at all, until Dead by Daylight came around and they gave content that was actually very good to the source material. So that in turn introduced new fans to the series, because Dead by Daylight is very popular. There's definitely a lot of people that never experienced Silent Hill, so now they want to go back to the games and experience them for the first time, of course. So combined all that together, that's basically why the series has become expensive. But I will explain certain games in the series, why some of them are more expensive compared to others, though, and some other ones strangely have had price increases, but they're nowhere near as the most expensive titles are. So the first game, which unfortunately I don't have, I would love to get it, is the very first game, Silent Hill. I've just right before I recorded this video, I saw a bidding end on eBay that a complete copy of that for the PS1, that sold for a little over $200. I've seen this game, it is still complete, range from $120 to $200 though, which is absolutely insane. I remember seeing that game for many, many years between the $30, $40 mark. and just seeing how the prices are is just really disgusting to me. And there's like the main reason like why that game has went up. It is the game that is where the Midwich Elementary School map in Dead by Daylight like did a complete copy of. Like if you have played Silent Hill 1 and you played the new map in Dead by Daylight for the Silent Hill chapter, that is it's literally carbon copy, to the point where even some of like certain jump scares that they had from the first game, they even put in the map in Dead by Daylight. That overall, it's just an absolute treat for fans if you've played the first Silent Hill game. And it does have a lot of the characters from the first game are costumes for Heather in Dead by Daylight. So overall, like the first game, the reason that it's mostly expensive is due to those factors, that most of the content you got in the Silent Hill chapter had like first appeared in the Silent Hill 1. Then moving on to Silent Hill 2, which I do have right here. The reason that this one has jumped up, not as much as Silent Hill 1, but it is still very expensive, is mainly due as this is the game that introduced Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head, of course, is the killer you play as in the Silent Hill chapter. And the way like they introduced him into this game is the best the series has ever done. Afterwards, they've just like threw him into like certain games because just for fan service, and there was like literally no reason for him to be in the other games, only because he was a popular monster from Silent Hill 2. So yeah, that's mainly the reason why like this game in particular has just went up a lot, though, really because people just love Pyramid Head a lot. And the next game, Silent Hill 3, that is not as much as Silent Hill 1, but it's still one of the more expensive ones. It's due to the fact that Heather Mason is like the main character you play as in that game. And I don't think the rest of the content in the Silent Hill chapter has anything taken from Silent Hill 3, that it's really only just Heather Mason is the main reason that game has just gone up in value quite a lot. And also it does have like extra stuff that it came with for its original release, like for the PS2 version, like it came with like a soundtrack, so it does add like a little bit of the value to it compared to like the rest of the series, where it's just like a standard game basically. Then Silent Hill 4 is like a strange one. I haven't played that game yet, but I don't understand like why that has jumped up in price compared to the others, because it doesn't have any of its content is not in the Silent Hill chapter in Dead by Daylight, as far as I know, because once again, I haven't played Silent Hill 4 yet. I do hope to one day pretty soon. But regardless, for like the PS2 version of that has just shot up like crazy. I should also mention, the series, it's mainly the PlayStation versions of these games for the most part that has just went up in value, because most people associate when it comes to consoles that PlayStation is like the one platform that just has a lot of just hidden gem horror games, basically. Like you can especially look at the PS2 for that. And it is where like the series started out with Silent Hill 1 is still like a PS1 exclusive to this day, I'm pretty sure. So as a result, like people like they just want to get like the whole series on like one platform basically, or like one brand, which is the PlayStation, of course. So that's why for games like Silent Hill 2, you can still find the original Xbox version, which objectively is like a slightly better game, only in regards to that it has more content than the original PS2 release. But you can still pick up like the OG Xbox version of Silent Hill 2 for like between like $30 to $40 still, which is like same price of what like I picked up my copy here like years before the prices just went insane. Silent Hill 4 also has a OG Xbox version as well that is still like priced reasonably of like how it always has been. Then other than that, you wait till later titles where they would suddenly get like a Xbox version, which are way more affordable than like the PlayStation counterparts. But regardless, the next game that has like went up in value quite a lot is Silent Hill Origins, and it's for all of its versions. I have the original PSP version here, and the main reason Origins has went up in value, it does have some of the characters from Silent Hill 1 into it, like Aless, Dahlia, and the nurse, I forgot the nurse's name right now, but yeah, it's mainly due to like some of the content from Silent Hill 1 is in this game as well, so prices for it have like gone up a lot for this game as well. Not as much as like previous ones though, but yeah, I'm glad I picked this up here like before the price got way too expensive for the PSP version here, but the PS2 version of Origins has gotten way more expensive. Mainly the PS2 versions of Silent Hill games are generally the most expensive because most like people they want to like have like a uniform collection though, and Silent Hill does have a lot of PS2 versions, hence why like certain games for that system like they will be more expensive compared to others. Then the next game in the series, Silent Hill Homecoming. That game is still very affordable to this day because, truth be told, it is not a good Silent Hill game amongst like fans and critics alike, even to this day. It does have Pyramid Head in it, which you would probably think it would bring up the price of it to like it would like appeal to like the Dead by Daylight community, but no, it hasn't though, because like he only appears in like one scene, and he can potentially appear in an ending if you get in the game. So yeah, that game still is like $20–$25 game, no matter which system you get it on. And I would probably advise you pick it up as soon as you can though, because like who knows if like that game like suddenly will just shoot up in price though if you ever plan on picking it up. And the next game in the series is right here, Silent Hill Shattered Memories. The Wii version has went up a little bit in value. I'm glad that I got my copy back for my brother, that he still held on to this copy like for many years. That I can't thank him enough for that I got this back from him. But the reason this one has went up, similar to Origins, Silent Hill 1, they have the same exact like characters from the previous two games. This one, it's a reimagining of Silent Hill 1, so most of the content from Silent Hill 1 is in Shattered Memories to a certain extent. Like all the characters are there. Midwich Elementary is in this game as well, but it's a completely different map layout, so it's nothing similar to like the map in Dead by Daylight. But if you do plan picking it up though, you try to get the Wii version, because even in putting even dealing with like the motion controlled gimmicks, like it still is like arguably the best version of the game, because the controls were tailor made for the Wiimote nunchuck, and also the other versions. The PSP version clearly doesn't look as good as the Wii version, but it's slightly more expensive compared to the Wii version. But then the PS2 version, oh my god, the cheapest I've seen of it online is $180 complete. Even before the prices went up a lot, it still was a game that was always relatively expensive. I honestly can't tell you why. Probably is like it just didn't sell very well at all, that it's just become like a more rare game, especially as of late, that like the highest price I've seen of is like $250, which now that's the most, arguably that's the most expensive game in the overall series that I have seen up to now. Maybe that'll change later on, who knows, but yeah, if you do plan on getting Shattered Memories, definitely pick up the Wii version. And afterwards, the next game in the series that went up in value for like a different reason though, that happened earlier this year, that is Silent Hill Downpour. This game is still, it's not as expensive compared to everything else that I mentioned here up this far, but it's mainly the PS3 version, sorry, that has went up in value quite a lot. mainly due to like all the attention that the PS3 has gotten earlier this year with most of its hidden gem games have just went up in price, and this is just like a random game that just have went up in value because it's like a Silent Hill title, and like some of the previous games are going up in value quite a lot. But thankfully, this is still relatively affordable compared to the other games, at least. I don't think this is, either way, I still don't think this is a good game at all. I could barely play this game with how glitchy it is, even with with the patches installed. It's still like a barely playable game, at least for me. But yeah, nonetheless, if you are like interested in picking this game up regardless, you can still get the 360 version, very cheap though still, because like I said, most people are trying to go for like PlayStation versions of the series so they can have like a whole uniform collection basically. Then afterwards, you had Silent Hill Book of Memories, which is a PS Vita exclusive game. Honestly, that is not even a real Silent Hill game, truth be told. Really, I believe the only reason it's expensive, and it always has been fairly expensive for like the last year, like even before prices went insane for what I noticed, is mainly due to it's a Vita game. Vita stuff has gotten like very expensive for like the last year and a half, 2 years roundabout. So say like I would say just Book of Memories has always just been like going up in price, like even before like the whole series has just went up in value. So overall, it's really hard to justify like paying these prices, because I would really like to get this into the whole series though, that I had like the urge to like start getting the entire series like much earlier this year, until I just went online and just see how the prices were. I just like, it's just been really difficult to justify paying those prices, and I do not want to pay them at all though, because once again I remember that almost all these games were like $30 to $40 like for almost every single one of them now, but that's not the case anymore. I do see the series like all like these games getting cheaper though over time, but it won't hold a candle to that anytime soon. It really just depends, like just more people like pick the games up, or just don't buy these inflated prices for God's sake. And just like the DBD community just like slowly loses interest overall, like they've like experienced what they want out of the series, so therefore prices should start to come down though. I really do hope it's pretty soon though, because like I said, I would love to get this series overall though. But one thing I should note though, if you do plan on getting especially Silent Hill 2 and 3, do not pick up this version here. The HD collection, which comes with Silent Hill 2 and 3, this is the worst way to experience these games. This is a horribly made, bug-riddled versions of these games that I cannot play either of these games because of how buggy they are. Yes, it's seriously that bad. Even with patches, I still can't play these games at all. So unfortunately, this is like the most like accessible way to play Silent Hill 2 and 3, sadly, other than emulation, of course, which, of course, I understand that's a gray area for some people, but just with how these prices are, though, just do emulation for some of these games, though, if you really want to try out this series, though. Silent Hill 1, though, is still up on the PlayStation Store for an incredibly cheap $6, compared to having to spend $200 like I saw for one auction on eBay for a complete copy of it, though. So with that said, I'd say that'll be the end of this video, guys. Leave a comment below like what your thoughts on the series is, what other reasons you think the series has went up in value. Also mention like other video game series you noticed that has just went up in value, not just for like pandemic reasons, but like other trends you noticed that seem to have caused like some of series you know to shoot up in value lately. Appreciate you rate this video and share it with others. Do subscribe for more content like this in the future. Until then, guys, see you next time.